Which Heat player will make the All-Star game this season? We decide the most likely things to happen this year for Miami. Look at one of the best role players in NBA history on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Real GM Radio, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. David, I was asked about this recently. What's something that you just spend way too much money on?
Beer? I don't know. Does that count?
Sure. It's a product that costs currency.
Yeah.
That's it. There it is. Yeah. I thought, my answer was pretty much everything, I feel like, at this point. Now it's diapers. Now it's diapers. But
they get expensive.
They do get expensive. Well, we have a great show for you today. Another edition of 25 of 25 is coming up with somebody who I consider, like David, one of the greatest role players of all time. Very excited to talk about this player. And you and I mean, you had the tease about one of the greatest role players of all time. I had this written down in my tease, one of the greatest role players of all time. We did not discuss that ahead of time. No. So very clear that we hold this player in high regard. But before we get to that, we're going to play a game called More Likely. It's very simple. I'm going to give David two scenarios, and he's going to tell me which of the two scenarios is more likely than the other scenario. So I think as long as you're following me on the rules so far, I think we're ready to get started.
They're pretty self-explanatory, so I think I can figure it out. But let's give it a go.
Let's jump in. First one, more likely that the Miami Heat make the playoffs or they end up in the lottery?
That's a great question. I think you and I have both talked about the expectations for this team. We did an episode where we looked at the Vegas odds, and they weren't pretty good. But both you and I think just by nature of covering this team, knowing the personnel, and most importantly, I think looking at Erik Spoelstra and what he's been able to do with rosters in the past. And I know that there are some critics, however wrong they might be, about Spo's coaching. I think they're more likely to make the playoffs. He's going to get the best out of this version of this team, and we've talked about it a number of times, and this team is deeper than a lot of people expect. They might not have the top-tier superstar that can lead them, but there's a lot of very good talent in this group. And there are 3 all-star level players in Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, and Norman Powell, and that should be enough. You've got another all-star in Andrew Wiggins, who we've almost kind of overlooked completely, and he's a 4th starter. And we've got some young potential players too, with Khalil Ware, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez. We expect him to have a bounce back. There's lots of depth on this team, and if there's a way that they can turn this around, I think it's through their depth, through their versatility, and maybe by embracing a different style of play that's going to lead them to the playoffs. So I don't expect them to be a lottery-bound team. I would think that they're going to be closer to a 5th seed in the Eastern Conference than anything else.
Understanding that we don't really have that superstar on the roster right now. There is no Jimmy Butler. There's no Dwayne Wade. There's no LeBron James. That superstar player is not on the roster. So saying that ahead of time, this is one of the deepest Heat rosters that I can remember. And that's even more so watching Eurobasket right now. It's hard to know how much you want to take away from Eurobasket, but the way that Pelle Larsson is playing, Simone Fontecchio, Nikola Jovic, all these guys look like they could be primed for maybe all of them career seasons. And if that's the case, then we're talking about outside of Nico, like Pelle and Fontecchio, fringe rotation guys.
Right.
And if these are guys that are going to like really compete for nightly rotation spots, this team has the potential to be really deep where you can afford Terry Rozier to have a drop-off in a way you couldn't afford Terry Rozier to drop off last year, even with Jimmy Butler around for half the season. Even before Butler got traded, that team stunk because they had banked so much on Terry Rozier. And now this team doesn't have to rely on that. If Jaime Jaquez Jr. has another a down season or just whatever, if somebody has a down year, it feels like there's enough reinforcements. Even after trading Haywood, it feels like there's enough reinforcements. To kind of mitigate that drop off or that loss, I think is much more likely that they make the playoffs than they end up in the lottery. Now, if this were the Western Conference, very different story, but it's not. It's the Eastern Conference. And even if this team makes the play-in tournament, this team leads the league in play-in tournament banners. And if they make the play-in tournament, they'll make it through. I trust this team to make it. More likely that they make it through a play-in tournament or not. It's always more likely that they will. So, yeah, I go playoffs on this one as well. Next one. More likely that Bam Adebayo or Tyler Herro make the All-Star game this year.
That's a great question, too. It feels like Tyler has the potential to certainly continue building off his All-Star season last year. And I think we've seen that throughout his career. He continues to get better in small ways. We expect that he's going to continue to emerge and develop as the team's top playmaker. But I do think that his primary role as a scorer is going to take somewhat of a hit just because they've got Norm Powell on the team now, and he's going to be expected to help take some of that brunt as well. So my feeling is that with a clear year, an understanding of a role, and embracing a full-time position at the power forward spot, Bam is probably going to be looked at again as the all-star caliber player that we know he is, because his defense is going to be there from day one. I think he's going to help set the tone early. I think he's going to continue to develop as a shooter, and his scoring, even if he just maintains his 20 points per game average, that would be enough given everything else that he does, where he's going to get the recognition of players and coaches around the league. And I think they respect so much of what he does. They know he's a winner. They know what a capable player he is. And he seems more likely to just go on his reputation's sake as an all-star rather than Tyler Herro.
Yeah, people like Bam. Coaches like Bam. The general feeling across the league is we want Bam to be an all-star, right? Like that is sort of the feeling around Bam. And not to say that that's not necessarily the feeling around Tyler Herro, but it's certainly the feeling around Bam. Bam's an American hero, gold medalist, like all this stuff. So that stuff does matter. I agree with you. So far we're in total agreement through the first two questions. I think it's Bam. I would have a hard time seeing the Heat get 2 all-stars. Although, you know what, if they're flirting with winning 55% of their games by the time we're voting for this thing, maybe they could get 2 all-stars. Like, we keep talking about how the East is wide open. It's also going to be wide open for the all-star game. Tatum out, Halliburton out. Like, there's a lot of guys that are hurt, and those spots are going to be up for grabs. So it is possible. But if we have to pick one, I would go Bam, because at the very least, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt from the coaches, whereas Tyler Herro did get onto the all-star team last year, and very deservedly, but with some pretty outstanding shooting numbers in the first half of the season. And those numbers dipped after the Jimmy Butler trade. Now, some of that was because he was forced to play off the dribble a lot more, the way that he had used to play, more like when he was a 6-man, because they just didn't have that guy after Butler got traded.
Right.
I do think this offense serves Tyler Herro a little bit more, even if the ball's out of his hands, to be more efficient with his shots. And you could see maybe him climb back up to that 23, 24 points per game, because he's just simply more efficient for the balance of the season, where that's did start to slip a little bit. But if Bam just plays the way he did the second half of last season, which was very good, he'll be on the all-star team again. Let's get one more in here before we go to break. More likely that Kasparas Yakachonis or Pelle Larsson is a nightly part of the rotation by the end of the season.
Ooh, that's the interesting twist there. I think Yakachonis can continue to develop, and we're already starting to hear, and a lot of fans are kind of frothing at the mouth already, Goran Dragic working with him. And that does sound encouraging, right? That's one of the top point guards, if not the best point guard in Heat history, my opinion. I think he could help Yakachonis kind of continue to grow and understand his role. And I think the potential is there. Let's say, assume maybe the injury impacted what we saw in Summer League. The size is there, the ability is there. He did have a solid outing that everybody can kind of look to and say, you know what, that's the ceiling, what he could reach. That being the case, I still have a hard time with Spo not continuing to look at Larsson, just because he loves that intensity. He loves the energy he brings, and that doesn't seem likely to go away. So I don't think that Larsson's going to continue to develop or be more consistent as a three-point shooter. I think he's just going to continue to be that guy who always puts pressure, always attacks, always tries to make winning plays. And unless Yakachonis just has a monster developmental growth spurt at Sioux Falls, I just don't see it. So I think Larsson is just going to continue to get the playing time, because just that's who's supposed to go to early in the season, and he's probably going to go to him late in the season as well.
Unfortunately, we've agreed on all three of these, so this was not nearly the debate that I was thought. It was a segment built for debate, and we just agreed on everything. That said, I do think that you're putting a little bit too much on Spo just liking Larson. I think Pelle Larson's good. I think he's just good right now. And you look at this roster, Jakob Jonas, not only does he have to have this big developmental leap as a rookie, he has to be better, not necessarily better, but he has to compete for minutes with Herro, Powell, Davion Mitchell. Terry Rozier is still hanging around. Drew Smith is back. There's just a lot more competition for Jakob Jonas, where Pella is like this kind of connecting piece that just fits in a lot of different lineups. So I could see Pella just being a guy that ends up in Spo's rotation, and not just because Spo likes him. I think Pella's really good. I think he's just a good basketball player and could just deserve to be out there. 25 of 25 is next with the player who could be credited for unlocking the big three. We'll tell you who it is after this. Stay tuned.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel. It fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on live action as that action unfolds. So let's say you catch a game in the second quarter, you want to place a little wager, that's the time to do it. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup or just watching any game in general. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to an already fueled Sunday. So if you are ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will enter a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. This is our 25 of 25 series, looking back at the top 25 Heat players of the last 25 seasons. Every episode will be taking an in-depth look at every player who made the list, is voted on by us and our Locked On Heat Insider community through the lens of what made them a definitive part of the franchise's history. On yesterday's show, we talked about Antoine Walker at number 16, coming in at number 15, the bald man himself, the Dookie product. It's Shane Battier, David.
Yeah, Shane Battier, tremendous player at Duke. Won Player of the Year awards before being drafted with the 6th pick overall by the Vancouver Grizzlies in 2001, before the team moved to their current location in Memphis. As a Grizzly, the start to Battier's career was a little rocky. He was always more of a very capable role player than a true number one option for a team that was looking for a star, at least one to complement a young Pau Gasol. But he was a solid shooter and a very versatile defender, and contributed to winning in a variety of ways, helping the team improve from 23 wins his rookie season to 50 wins and their first ever playoff berth just 2 seasons later. Battier was still traded to the Houston Rockets in 2006, during which he continued to develop as one of the top role players in the league, twice making the NBA's all-defensive teams. During that stretch, Battier became one of the first players to really embrace analytics. Of course, the Houston front office being one of the first to really promote the use of analytics. Battier, as a player, wanted to get more of this kind of information to help him with his defensive matchups, and it really helped, obviously, the Rockets. Eventually, though, still traded Battier back to the Grizzlies in 2011 when he was an expiring contract. As Battier entered free agency in 2011, he considered joining 2 teams, something he confirmed to me in an interview with back in 2020, either the San Antonio Spurs or the Miami Heat. And he based that decision on the Mavericks winning the championship that season, and that he wanted to join either the teams that Dallas had eliminated, either the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals or the Heat in the NBA Finals. And while he mulled his decision, however, the NBA had locked out their players while negotiating a new CBA, and the season didn't start until late December. And then On December 9th, Battier announced the following via Twitter about his decision. The lockout gave me lots of time to consider what was important to me at this stage of my life and career. Over the last week, I've played out every scenario in my head over and over. It always came back to one thing for me, a winning role. I'm appreciative of all the kind words and recruiting pitches over the last week. Thank you. Of course, he wound up joining the Miami Heat that season, and he started almost immediately among joining the big three, taking on the defensive matchups that would save wear and tear on LeBron James, while also providing key three-point shooting and excellent leadership skills. In the 2012 NBA Finals, Battier's 11.6 points per game exceeded his 4.8 average during the regular season, and he wound up making 15 of 26 three-point shots. His 57.7 three-point shooting percentage in the 2012 finals is the highest percentage ever recorded by a player who made 15 or more three-pointers in a finals series. Battier would continue his role as a starter the following season as a key contributor and the ultimate glue guy. In the midst of the best season in Heat history, Battier delivered a speech to several players on the roster, considered the spark that would ignite the second longest win streak in NBA history following a game on Super Bowl Sunday in Toronto, of all places. The team watched the game together and bonded over the experience, and Shane spoke to the team about what an amazing opportunity this team had to, in his words, quote, touch the people, meaning to change the world. And it worked, helping the team galvanize to 26 more consecutive wins. The team, of course, won the 2013 championship over the Spurs, but Battier announced his intention to retire following the next season, a long, tiresome year that resulted in Miami being beaten badly by the Spurs. And then Battier took on a role with the Heat's front office in retirement and remains a part of that team as a consultant.
So the part that I remember about Battier's impact, and I mentioned this in the tease coming in, he unlocked the big three. He allowed LeBron, and you touched on this, David, he allowed LeBron not to have to guard guys the same size as him and Shane, right? Like those 6'8" kind of wing guys. Shane was able to guard other power forwards when LeBron either couldn't or didn't want to do it. Mostly didn't want to do it. At that point, LeBron could do whatever he wanted. But the Heat have kind of been chasing that power forward ever since Battier left. Like you could even go to 2014 when Battier was still on the roster, but had clearly at that point age had kind of gotten a hold of him. And they started playing Rashard Lewis more at that spot. And he just never was quite what Battier was when Battier was at his best the couple of years before that. And like I said, ever since then, they've sort of been chasing that. You could argue maybe they had it for a year with PJ Tucker, different kind of player, but similar in the way that he allowed Miami's best players to play at their best spots.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I remember about it. Was so ahead of their time. Battier was so ahead of his time. Spo was so ahead of his time, playing Bosch at the 5, Battier at the 4. And you have seen teams, you could credit a lot of players' careers for sort of mimicking what it is that Shane Battier did with that big three team, like what Harrison Barnes was able to do in his early career at Golden State, what Tobias Harris is doing now. It's these guys who were sort of these threes who weren't super skilled,
Right.
finding a home at that stretch 4 spot.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it throughout NBA history, but I think maybe it's just recency bias. But a guy like Shane feels like he's so vital. And I remember when he was drafted, and you probably remember this too, because it wasn't that long ago. You know, it was a little bit of a disappointment. They took him with the 6th pick.
Yep.
You invest that kind of a pick on somebody who's going to lead your team. That was never who Battier was. He was just always a guy who did everything. He contributed to winning. He made those winning plays that Eric Spoelstra has talked about so much. But they're vital components of any winning team. And he's just always been a winner wherever he goes because he brings that mentality. He does the dirty work, and he allows everybody else to kind of thrive in their own roles. And he never wants any of the credit. He just goes about his business, and it always leads to success. And so that's
he was
how
one
I
of the
remember
original analytics darlings, right?
Oh yeah,
where
yeah,
it wasn't
that.
like the point. Yeah, it wasn't like one of the points per game stuff and the box score stuff. It was always his win shares were this, his plus minus on the box score was that. Like his PER was always high. I mean, you mentioned part of the 2 longest winning streaks in NBA history. Played a big role, starting player on those teams. Like that matters. He has a 53% career win percentage. I mean, this guy is a bona fide winner. Let's jump into our rankings. The highest he was ranked by any of our voters was 11.
Ooh, wow.
The lowest was not ranked at all, which I find very surprising. I had him ranked 14. You had him ranked 21. He settles in here at 15 as we crack our top 15 of the list, and I think that's a good spot for Shane Battier to be in, even if the box score stats don't stand out. His importance in unlock, like the skeleton key of a big three team that was undoubtedly, we had this conversation about Chris Anderson, right? Where you could measure the impact that Chris Anderson had, not just with the 27-game win streak, but just he filled a need for that roster, his backup center behind Chris Bosh. Times a billion with Shane Battier, right? Like everything clicked with Battier on the roster. He was part of the best version of the Heat teams, and he was instrumental in those teams being the best versions of themselves.
I love that that story that has just grown as legendary. The touch the people speech that he delivered on Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, it was just such a great moment. And you know, for those fans that haven't heard it, and I'm surprised if they hadn't, but they're playing in Toronto, so they're away from the United States to embrace an unofficial American holiday in Super Bowl Sunday. And there they are for an early game against the Raptors, a bad Raptors team at that point. They beat them soundly, kind of just out of spite more than anything else. And of course, this was one of the best NBA teams in history. And they go to a sports bar. They decide to watch the game there. The Heat put on a great party. And Battier's drinking too many Molsons, and he gets a little too wild. But then they're back on the team bus, and he just delivers this great speech. And he notices all the players looking at him, and he's just telling them, like from his heart, that we have an opportunity to touch the people, to change the world, to change the way they see basketball. And it worked. Like, I mean, I remember him telling me that in an interview, and I got goosebumps. I wanted to touch the people after that. You know, it was just that kind of an impact. So that's
the best kind of drunk, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the best kind of drunk. He could have
this larger than life moment, though. You know,
he could have went sleepy drunk and just fell asleep on the team bus, and we never get the 27-game win streak. So, good for Shane, good for the Heat, good for us because we get to talk about him. Trivia is coming up next. All right, lead us off, David. Trivia.
All right. Battier announced he was signing with the Heat, as I said earlier, in December 2011. What singer did he reference in his announcement?
Oh, God. Wow. So Shane Battier. This is an easy one?
I thought so. Yeah, I thought so.
I haven't seen the announcement. Oh, I know it's not J. Cole.
No. Does Battier strike you as a J. Cole kind of guy?
No, because he's smart.
They're kind of come after us in the comments. You bring it on.
It's a bit now. I don't know. Michael Jackson.
Oh, good guess, but way off. He's a well-known parrot head. Second part of that
Jimmy
tweet.
Buffett, R.I.P.
Yeah. This was an exciting process, and after much deliberation, I would like to quote the great poet, Jimmy Buffett, and take my chances, quote, trying to reason with hurricane season down in Miami. Let's go, #Heat. So that was the second part of his announcement there. Yeah. He actually went on stage and played with Jimmy Buffett at one point. I don't remember what instrument he was playing, like some kind of percussion instrument or something like that, maybe shaking the maracas. I don't even know, but he wound up having a great time. Battier
he knows the maracas because they're the same shape of his head.
Wow. Everyone's catching strays today. This is not getting enough sleep for those of you who aren't parents. All right?
That's correct. I don't know what I'm saying.
Battier was famously part of two of the longest win streaks in NBA history. How many games did the Houston Rockets win consecutively?
31.
No.
Oh.
Way off.
Way off?
Yeah.
Wasn't
the Rockets, they won 22 games. The Heat won 27 games.
Oh, the Heat have the longest one. That's right. Okay.
Well, they should have the longest one. BS Warriors got it split across 2 seasons. It's like, what the hell does that count?
Well, it doesn't count. Nobody counts that. Nobody rightly counts that. No.
Absolutely. 22 games in a row the Houston Rockets won. That was impressive. So that's question number 2. Number 3, the year he was drafted. This is the tough one. You take the points however you want them. He played with 4 former Heat players on the Grizzlies roster. Name any one of them, you get a point for him. So the year he was drafted in 2001, He played alongside 4 former Heat players. If you can name one, you get a point for it.
Okay. So when he was drafted to Vancouver in 2001, he played with 4 former Heat players that were former Heat players at the time in
guys
2001?
that have played on the Heat roster at some point.
Okay, people who would eventually or at some point played on the Heat. Okay. I get a point if I name any of them?
Yes. This is an opportunity for 4 points.
James Johnson.
No.
Jesus, I don't know.
You get one more guess.
James Posey.
Nope. Good guess, but no. I'll give you another guess. Go for it. 2000.
Who would have 2001 on Vancouver? They moved to Memphis. They had that big trade. I'm wondering if it was. Man.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
We talked about him already.
We talked about
him on this 25 list.
Jason Williams?
Ding, 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 ding.
He was? I was wondering if he had come over. Yeah, I guess he did. Yeah, that was his first year. That's right, because he played his last season in Sacramento in 2000. So then, yeah, okay.
Let's say Jason Williams, Isaac Austin,
okay,
Grant Long, and Rodney Buford.
Yeah, I would have only gotten Jason Williams. All right, so I get 1 point.
You do. You get 1 point.
All right, cool. I'll take it.
Not bad. Oh, I have a 4th trivia question if you want it.
No, that's fine. Let's do it.
What's the name of the charity event that he holds here
in South
Florida? Yeah. All right.
I'm not going to take it. Well, you know what? You asked me it. I'm taking the point. All right. Recurring segments. Let's start with our sliding doors moment, a moment that could have changed the way this player is remembered for better or for worse. A what if moment. David, you mentioned the one I had already, kind of. You mentioned that he was deciding between Miami and San Antonio in 2011. So to me, it's what if he signs with the Spurs? That to me is the biggest what if moment. But I could go back even further than that.
Ooh.
Before I do that, do you have a different what if moment, or a sliding doors moment rather?
No, I mean, I think you said it kind of funnily, but like, what if he just passes out? What if he doesn't deliver that speech? What if they don't win 27 games? Do Heat fans still remember him as fondly? Like, I mean, yeah, he was part of a championship team, but it's not like Rashard Lewis is getting that kind of love. You know, even Mike Miller doesn't get that kind of love. So, I don't know. Shane just seemed to, like, he was just such a well-spoken and a guy who just leapt into Heat culture so easily and so well. And like you said, the guy who helped unlock the big 3 in so many ways. But, you know, I think that speech has just become part of Heat lore. And I think the fact that he's the one who kind of sparked it. Hey, look, does it help that you have 4 Hall of Famers if you include Ray Allen on the roster? Absolutely. I mean, they were a really good team. They were a really good team before the speech, but I just still like to think of that speech as being one that kind of led them into the battle. You know, I don't know. It's just a key moment in Heat history.
Yeah. So the one I have is the obvious one is if he just signs with San Antonio instead. And remember, that was coming off the lockout season. He had a long time to think about it, and I do wonder, if there was no lockout, does he come to the same decision, right? He talked about, so he's got this quote about, this is from Brian Windhorst's story on ESPN about his decision to sign with Miami. Quote, the lockout gave me lots of time to consider what was important to me at this stage of my life and career. Over the last week, I've played out every scenario in my head over and over. It always comes back to one thing for me, a winning role, end quote. And you talked about all the things that he mentioned to you as well. And, you know, I just wonder if there's no lockout. But another what if moment, another sliding doors moment. He had a relationship with Nick Arison because Nick Arison was a team manager at Duke.
Right.
And that was credited for, Battier is credited that relationship for one of the reasons he signed in Miami. Now, I don't know that it's the biggest reason. Maybe the biggest reason was the fact that they employed LeBron James and Dwayne Wade.
That helps.
It certainly does. And that they were coming off of a finals run. But, you know, what if Nick Arison never is the team manager at Duke? What if their paths don't cross? You know, so there's some sliding doors moments, but that's what I could come up with. Jersey worthy. Is this a cool jersey to own and wear to a Heat game? What do you think?
Absolutely. Like Battier, I mean, that's a guy who gets it. You know, not that same fun vibe as Antoine Walker, perhaps, but that's giving credit to a guy who's so instrumental and one of the best role players in NBA history and team history, etc. That's showing an appreciation for the people who do the dirty work. So yeah, I think that's definitely a cool jersey to have.
My initial reaction is no. It's like
Right.
you're picking a Battier jersey from the team with LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh.
Okay,
And
all right.
Udonis
Here's the
Haslem?
scenario for you. Here's the scenario for you. You see a Miami Floridians jersey with Battier written across the back.
I'm giving
How
that guy a
badly
high
do you
five.
want one on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, 10. I'm giving that guy a high five. All right, you've convinced me.
Yeah.
Yes. Does he pass the Eddie Jones test? This is not like the definition of the Eddie. We should call this the Shane Battier test. 100%. He makes every. Let's rename it. We're gonna call it. We're gonna keep Eddie Jones. We're gonna rename it the Eddie Jones Shane Battier test. I think that is worth it.
Okay. And perfect role player, like just lore, I guess. You know, the fact that Eddie Jones winds up losing even his name on this one thing. It's like that was my one claim. I would come back to the team, and now you're taking that from me. Damn.
Oh, that's right.
So,
that's why Eddie Jones did come back to the team.
Well, Shane came
right,
back as a
we'll keep
consultant.
it.
You know?
He did. All right, so we're here for it. We're gonna rename it the Battier Jones test.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Give them both
All
credit.
right. Should we keep Jones as the first name at least?
Well,
The Jones Battier test.
Order. Yeah. Okay. That's right. That's fine.
All right, the Jones Battier test. All right. Yeah, he does. Versus pin this player against the player who came before him and ask, did we get it right? Shane Battier, 1 spot over Antoine Walker. Yeah, we got this one right.
I think so too.
Yep. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments section. Do you think we got it right? Is Shane Battier too high, too low? What do you remember about Shane Battier's career in Miami? Now, for your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. I'm hosting alongside Matt and Hayes to keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the more informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.